What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. Right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of P90X, Atari, and many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise 25, which helps service professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, dentists, coaches, you name it, stop just trading time for dollars and shift from a one-to-one client work to a one-to-many. Rise 25 is an exclusive accountability and group coaching program, and who want to scale up, and it's run by myself and by my co-founder, John Corcoran. We bring together like-minded entrepreneurs from different client-serving backgrounds. A lot of times people love, Ben, we have a dream product ladder, which is a download on our Rise 25 site, and it basically helps any business kind of design their business on one sheet of paper and see untapped revenue potential there. So a lot of people go there, download your free dream product ladder. And I am excited to introduce today's guest. We have Ben Arneberg, and he co-founded two quickly growing seven-figure e-commerce companies, Willow and Everett and CubeFit. And what's even more impressive, Ben, as you know, because you live this, but he did this all by while he was working full-time in the United States Air Force, helping to develop some cutting-edge space technology. So, Ben, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks so much, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be here.
I always like to include a fun fact. And so Ben has skydived over 500 times and can also juggle flaming torches. That's
but not at the
accurate.
same time.
Not at the same time. That's good. Be safe out there. So, Ben, I'm excited to chat. And first of all, I want to talk first about how did you get started? How did you get interested in this e-commerce journey? Because kind of take me back to that time. You're in the Air Force, right? Working full time. Mm-hmm. What gets you interested in e-commerce?
So I've always been interested in entrepreneurship, and always had those leanings. And once I went to the Air Force Academy, graduated, and my first assignment was to go to grad school. So while I was there, I really wanted to kind of just test out some startup things, and I heard about an organization called 3 Day Startup where we got to basically make a startup in a weekend. And it was an amazing experience. We ended up doing a pivot and launching this mobile app in the healthcare space that was picked up as a President's Challenge finalist in this Harvard Challenge. And we got residency at Harvard's Innovation Lab through that, and just like a lot of awesome resources. And, for a while, kind of living the quote startup dream, if you will. But like most high-flying tech startups, it's really difficult to pull it off. So I had to basically separate from that startup to go down for my next Air Force assignment. And I was left kind of feeling disillusioned. Like, man, entrepreneurship it's awesome and sexy, but you either make it big and you're Mark Zuckerberg, or you just completely fail, and 9 out of 10 fail. So I just thought, like, man, this just isn't going to work for me. But as I was doing my Air Force job, I kept thinking, like, I love entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about it. So I started exploring, some different business models out there, and heard actually on Ryan Moran's podcast, Free and Fastlane, talking about this e-commerce business model, and thought, hey, that sounds like it would be kind of fun, and it doesn't sound too difficult, not impossible or anything. So I was like, I think I'm going to give that a shot. So decided to try that out in 2014.
So I want to go back and talk about Heligram. That was the startup, right? What were some of the learnings there? Because I don't want to overstep this, because it's important. You probably had a lot that you learned. Some things worked, some things didn't work. Yeah. And what was your experience there? What worked, and what do you take from there and go, okay, I got to do this differently in my next company?
Yeah. So the biggest thing was, in that entire company, we were essentially a solution looking for a problem. We came up with this like really cool idea, this really cool technology, and talked to a few even doctors about it, and we're starting to line up some. So basically, the premise of the app is it allows doctors to remotely monitor patients' wounds healing, and it was a pivot from a previous idea we had for an app of kind of like a time lapse of people aging, which was a really stupid idea. But we thought, hey, what if we did this time lapse in the medical field and could kind of watch as, the doctors, watching these things heal over time, and it saves a bunch of money. They don't have to go into the doctor, et cetera, et cetera. But
talk about the pivot for a second, though, because that's an important point. Like, oftentimes companies start off in one direction, even if it is a good idea, and pivot to something's even better, right? So the initial idea, what caused the pivot?
So initially the pivot was caused by and through this, and something I also learned, I learned a ton from this experience. They say you learn more from your failures and mistakes than you do from your wins. But one of the things we did really well was trying to follow the whole lean startup model. So we were on the ground, just getting out there in Boston, talking to people on the street, saying, hey, what do you think of this like time lapsing app idea? And a lot of people are like, it's okay, it's kind of cool, but I wouldn't pay for it. So we quickly determined this is not a great idea. But then we made that pivot into the medical space because a few guys on the team had medical connections. One was like Harvard Dental School. So we thought like, hey, this could have a lot of potential. Started talking to some actual doctors and decided to kind of build it out from there. But we never really truly were able to validate like this is a bleeding neck problem, as like a Perry Marshall would say. Like this is something that needs to be solved now. It was kind of like, that might be cool. And there's just a lot of red tape in the healthcare space as well. So a lot of hurdles, but the biggest one I would say is there wasn't a clear defined problem that we were really solving, or we had a conjecture of what that was, but no one was necessarily begging for it at that moment. Yeah.
So when you pivoted, you were pivoting towards more of a pain point. I mean, it sounds like you were doing the right things of talking to the customer base and validating it.
Right.
So what was the issue? Like, why there wasn't another pivot where you actually found it? It just was a time thing?
So partially, and what ended up happening is I had like my time was up, so to speak, with the grad school assignment. Air Force was like, all right, you got to go down to Washington, D.C. So I left those guys, and then they went and took it to an accelerator in New York. And I think it's actually now, finally slowing down. Like there was maybe at one point going to make it. I don't think it is, but just a lot of, I guess, complexity for coming up with something that is untested. And I guess from that experience, it made me much more interested in finding business models, at least for now, that are a little more probable. So you're not going to be like a billionaire from them, but you have a good chance that you can make a pretty nice business out of it. The cash flow businesses, so to speak. So that's where I really like e-commerce and playing in that space now, but then using it as a breeding ground to launch innovative products. And go from there. Yeah, and
I like that. It's a lot of times thinking of it as a problem, like solving a problem first, and especially if it's a bleeding neck problem, then that's even you're really providing a solution that people want, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and to that, I think there are so many problems in the world, and so many startups that I've seen, especially those like fresh out of college, like super idealistic students are like, oh, we're going to change the world. We're going to do this thing because it sounds cool. And they don't really do their homework to like really, really, really try to validate the problem or go out there and approach it totally different. Hey, let's learn as much as we can about all the problems out there, and then let's like back it out and build a solution. So many do the complete opposite. I think it's kind of rampant, especially in those like idealistic student bubble, Silicon Valley, et cetera.
100%. Like when John and I at Rise 25, we joke when we're talking to people is like, if you ask us a question, we say the same thing every time, which is ask your customer. Like what should we charge? I don't know. Ask your customer. What should we do? What should we add to this product? I don't know. Ask your customer. And it comes down to that.
And honestly, that advice it's so simple, but it's so easy to forget. And I even have to remind myself of this frequently, but as an example, we did this for one of our products, one of our teapots. I just started asking every new customer, like, hey, what do you like most about this product and what can we do better? And I was amazed at the incredible quality of feedback we got to not only allow us to then position it better in the marketplace, but then to continue making iterations. Just, it's so simple, but I think so many entrepreneurs overlook it.
Yeah. So this takes me, and I'm really fascinated by this. One, how you did the e-commerce. You're working full time in the Air Force, jumping out of planes or whatever you're doing. I guess you're jumping out of planes, developing space technology. How you did that. And I also want to talk about, we're on the bleeding neck problem, in your companies. I want to know how you research on what the next product is going to be. So start with how'd you do this full time? You're doing full time in the Air Force and starting these two. People have a hard enough time starting one seven-figure business or any seven-figure business, and you're doing this while working full-time in the Air Force.
So yeah, definitely started with a lot of baby steps at first, and scaling from there. But yeah, so it started with actually started a fitness brand in the e-commerce space. Bad product choice. The company didn't really work out, but I thought, hey, there's still something here. So I got my wife on board. We said, let's make a brand out of things we like doing. There's no better customer than yourself.
What was the first product that didn't work?
So the first I'm almost embarrassed to say it was pretty silly. It was really kind of like following a trend. It was these calf compression sleeves supposed to help running and health. And we thought like, hey, let's make a minor innovation and put like reflective stripes on the calf sleeves when people are running at dark. Yeah, but honestly, talk about I should have learned my lesson from Helogram and really validate it. We did a little bit, but not enough. People didn't care. So we decided with
I don't think
Everett
that's that embarrassing. I thought you were going to say something way worse.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I guess interesting thing too, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, can maybe attest. I feel like there's this fine tension between going after like super sexy high tech startups that have, like you're like really excited about and proud to be saying you're working on, but probably are going to flop versus like, I'm just selling toothbrushes, what I mean? But like, I'm making a really good living doing it. So I feel
there's a need for it, but it's not like saving the world.
Right,
maybe
right.
Gingivitis world, but
right. So so we decided, my wife and I, to start this brand out of just what we were passionate about. We love coffee, we love tea, hosting people. So just kind of made this lifestyle brand, Willow and Everett, out of that. And any product we launched, made sure it scratched our own itch. It was high quality, what we would want to use. But over time, I did become a student of systems and then outsourcing, and 80/20. Perry Marshall's book influenced me a lot, the 80/20 of sales and marketing, because as we scaled, there's just way too many tasks. And on top of that, I'm working full time. This all started off as an experiment, and it grew so fast to the point where I was able to do it full time, but I still had a commitment to the Air Force. So I literally could not, leave and do this full time. So it just became about becoming as efficient as possible. So like I said, systemizing everything, focusing on those high level tasks, getting everything else off my plate. And then with the second business, CubeFit, which is our healthy office products business, it was finding a really awesome couple to be our partners for that, and then kind of replicating the success, the systems of Willow and Everett. And what we found for one of the biggest levers to pull is selling everything primarily through Amazon.com, because then we could use all their fulfillment, their sales channel. We found it was a very quick way to scale, and that we could continue focusing on finding, creating, curating awesome products, and taking care of the customer.
Doing it on a marketplace as opposed to trying to sell it all yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you systemize? What are some things you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big fan of Work the System by Sam Carpenter and making standing operating procedures. Actually, Tim Francis, who you've had on the show.
Shout out to Tim Francis.
Yeah. His, read some of the stuff he put out there. So just like really phenomenal material. So yeah, just, we ended up making a lot of standard operating procedures for our business. We have over 50, 70 now. We have a lot, and then starting to hire help, really learning how to get a team, scale it, let them make the SOPs, and run almost everything in the company that that they can run.
We even have a page dedicated to Tim Francis. Like there was actually rise25.com, I think it's /Tim Francis, where we share his story, but there was an actual Inc. article written on Tim from one of our retreats. It was called basically what you're saying, the lean startup, how to pivot like a pro, and how he pivoted on an idea and created this whole new business just by listening to feedback. So that's really interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Work the System, Tim Francis. What did you actually implement from learning from Tim Francis? So you started to create systems documents, it sounds like. What else? What did you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So systems documents, making a company intranet site, linking everything together in Google Docs just so it was quickly scannable, and then having a combination of VAs like outside the U.S., in the U.S. handle logistics, operations, customer service, marketing, and then like I said, just trying to divide as much of that out as possible, and then just kind of orchestrating it because the time was so limited. And it was also fantastic. My wife was able to quit her job and come and join me. She also does wedding photography, so she's kind of doing both. But it was awesome to have her on board because she's definitely the marketing brand force behind the company.
This is, I don't want to jump over this either, Ben, because this is important to talk about the VA piece, right? You say it very nonchalantly, but some people have a very hard time finding and delegating specific tasks and even keeping those VAs. So how did you have success with attracting the right VAs, and then what did you have them actually doing for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've definitely also had my share of mistakes in this place. Was literally like one day away from hiring someone who had, as I found out later, declared bankruptcy and stolen money from a previous employer. So
how'd you realize that?
So ended up, deciding to run. And part of this is that balance between, lean startup, doing things as fast as you can, but then making sure you put enough like checks in place that you're not doing something that will destroy the whole company. Yeah. So it's like a really fine balance. But in this case, my accountant was like, hey, you should maybe at least run a background check on that person you're going to hire and talk to some of the references. And I was just trying to go as fast as I can. I was like, that's a really good point. So I think for this process, it's trying to learn as much as you can. What are the best practices out there? Yeah. What we found is for VAs, at least based overseas, really like using a headhunting service called Virtual Staff Finder for Filipino VAs. They're pretty fantastic. And then for the US, I really like making or kind of dove into making hiring funnels. So basically you try to have people go through as many hoops as possible before even spending time on an interview with them. So trying to get 100 people in the funnel, then narrow it down. Yeah. But I guess just, I after some mistakes, tried to become a student of learning as much as I could about those funnels. And I think it's really about finding good resources, or not resources, but where is everyone hanging out that you want to attract? So the two methods are either go out and poach them. It's a lot more difficult, especially when you don't have a company that people recognize or know yet, or you go to these fantastic sources, hiremymom.com being one of them. I know Tim Francis talks about them a lot, and they're awesome. And then also I found angel.co is pretty great, because you have a lot of people that want to work for startups there, and they also do remote work. Yeah, so we found for one of our marketing positions, just incredibly high quality leads. And right now we have all of our company virtual, although I think I'd like to, for these companies or future ones, try to do a lot of that in-house, because I think there is a lot more synergy, camaraderie occur from that. But at the time, with a full-time job, I couldn't have them in-house, so we just had it all around the world.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I know some of those resources are just huge. If even one of those, someone just checks them out, that can be game-changing for someone's business. So, you have to 80-20 things. You have to delegate things. You have to create systems, or you can't do both at the same time. So it was like a blessing in disguise for you to be so busy.
My wife pointed that out. She's like, you're actually really fortunate that it was a forcing function. Like, I think I would have gotten a lot lazier. And so actually I was trying to join the reserves and get out even earlier, and I ended up getting denied from that attempt. And at that point I said, all right, I made this list of these are ways I'm going to save even more time. It's a little ridiculous, but one of them was I vowed I was going to take Ubers everywhere and work in the back of the car on my laptop, when instead of wasting time in the car. I ended up not doing that because my wife wouldn't let me, or, strongly discouraged me from doing that. But there is, So
what are some others, Ben? What are some other time savers that you actually use on a daily basis? I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So, I guess the thing though is I'm, now, I can finally be a full-time entrepreneur. I can kind of, what do I want my life to look like? And I don't want to be someone who just maximizes throughput. I'm just the most productive human ever. I think there's a lot more to life than just getting stuff done.
Tim Francis, don't listen to this. You will not approve.
So that's actually a question I'm really internally kind of wrestling with, what do I want my life to work with? I'm a Christian, so how can I honor God with my life? How can I be a good husband to my wife? There's a lot of things that don't really have a measurable ROI, but are so important to even what it means to be a human. So I'm kind of now realizing, whoa, I went a little off the deep end with my insane efficiency. And I told this to my wife, I'm like, relationships are the most inefficient thing on earth, but they're also, I think, one of the most necessary, what we're made for. So as far as time saving right now, when I'm working, I try to be, batch your email, check it once in the morning, once in night, use Boomerang, kind of, I guess, some of the common
When
tactics.
do you check it? In the morning and evening, usually?
So I'm a big fan of the One Thing, which is something that I highly recommend reading.
Yeah. I interviewed with one of the co-authors, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So that also has changed my life, I would say, the business, because when I get up, I spend usually 2 to 3 hours just focusing on what are my top level tasks right now, and then after that I'll check my email maybe mid-morning.
Yeah, Inspired Insider Jay Pappison, you can check out the interview. Yeah.
Oh,
for anyone out
okay.
there.
I will have to listen to that as well.
Yeah. So I
really
agree. Yeah. So what else has saved you a ton of time business wise? So you batch it, batch your email.
Yep. Batch email. Personally, I try to make sure I'm still working out, 3 or 4 times a week. Just that helps me stay sane, of sound mind. I try to limit my hours as well. Try to take off like all day Sunday and work not very much on Saturday either, because I find that the more I'm recharging, the more fresh I am just to get after things. And also, I think it's harder to make yourself do those really high value tasks. The one thing, like, what's the one thing you can do such that everything else is unnecessary? I think if you're in this constant, like, running around the hamster wheel, doing 60 hours a week, you almost don't even have time then to think about what are my most high value tasks. And, it's the whole notion of, being busy isn't the same as being productive. So the more time you build in, I think the more time you have focus. And this is something I'm still learning, because I've only been full-time for literally 3 months.
Maybe you should go back to not full-time. You're like, I'm just getting another job so that I have to force within those hours.
Yeah. But, so then one other thing is, I think this is pretty brilliant. Once a month, sit down and say, what are all the tasks I've done this last month that are unnecessary? Write them all out. And then say, what can I either eliminate? What can I outsource? What should I keep doing? But that also has really helped me identify things that I'm doing every day that, okay, I should probably have one of our employees or VAs do this.
Because we get into we just get into what's normal. So what are some of those things that you did eliminate or delegate?
Okay, so even simple things like setting up an email campaign, and now having our marketing person curate and run those. But in the beginning, it was like, hey, I can probably shave off 10 minutes by having our VA build this in MailChimp versus me having to go in there and do it. So I guess it's just little things like that, of anything that someone else can do that's going to save you even a few minutes, do it, because it's going to compound and save you a lot of time.
What's something, Ben, that you would have thought, 6 months ago, there's no way, I'm the only one who should be doing this, I'm the only one who could do this, and now it's not on your plate anymore? Because sometimes it's easy to see, okay, I should obviously not be calling a customer service person and spending an hour on the phone on wait. But sometimes it's the things that we hold so close. Like, for instance, people outsource the whole email. Like, some people are like, no, I want to be the one responding. What was something for you that you felt, I need to be the one to do this, that you actually ended up taking off of your plate?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Maybe there isn't one right now.
No, so I think when we were launching new products, I kind of kept myself as point on making sure it was on track, and then really pushing to make sure it was launched. And what I noticed was, as we continue to grow our company, this, I can't be the one kind of running point on new products. Yeah, and just trying to maintain, what part is where it needs to be, and making sure everything's on track. So what we did was we ended up listing every single step, soup to nuts of launching a product, like a 50-item document. And now I have our marketing manager run that in conjunction with a few other employees, VAs, and they just give me status updates on it. But that's been a huge stress relief, that when we, I kind of still help curate, and then, get the product ready, as far as okay, now we're going to order it. But then they take and run the whole thing. And 6 months ago, I don't think I ever would have maybe thought I could trust someone to run that process.
Yeah. So it's really breaking it down into the small pieces so that you can maybe focus on one of those pieces that is your natural superpower.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Any other softwares or things you use to have time savers? Like, one thing I use is I use eNounce. I don't know if anyone's heard of eNounce. It's a desktop app that speeds up all of your audio, video on your computer up to 3 times. So just slider pops up, and you can just push the slider. So if you want to listen to something on YouTube and on any website, you can speed it up. So with research and things. So I'm wondering one of those things that you do that I should be doing also, or anyone else should be doing. What do you have on your, I don't know, your phone? What do you use software wise on a daily basis to be more efficient or to help save time?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one of the things, I guess this doesn't really answer your question, but I try to simplify and cut as much as I can. So, for example, like I try to not check my phone very often. I'll reply to texts even once a day, maybe, kind of like batch it. I use an extension of my computer so I can type it out because I hate having to like thumb on it. I check Facebook maybe once a week. Like I guess just like eliminating as much stimuli as possible, and then continually focusing on what's most important. And how am I running my team while I'm managing them while are we setting good vision? But maybe like a practical tool is Boomerang. I'm not sure if you.
I use followup.cc.
So okay. Is it pretty similar?
I don't know if it's similar or not, but I've heard it is.
Okay.
But yeah, that's smart.
But yeah, I guess that's the big one that comes to mind.
Eliminate, not add, is your message here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
You mentioned something, you have a 50 plus step document that you broke down with the launching product. Because two of the questions I have is I want to know how you research new products. And then second is then how you launch those products. And I thought maybe we'd start with, you've had a lot of success on Kickstarter. If anyone hasn't checked out, I mean, your CubeFit site is a special place in my heart, Ben, because I find that sitting stagnant is a silent killer for people, human beings, and I really think, some of those products help with that, like the standing desk, the ergonomic standing desk mat, and, the Kickstarter was the CubeFit TerraMat, which is the ergonomic standing desk mat. So I'm wondering on how you came to that product. And then actually, I think, I'm not sure how much you wanted originally, but I think it did over $108,000 for that Kickstarter.
Yeah, it went really well, and I have to give my business partner Gerald a lot of props for that because he spearheaded that effort. And honestly, in the beginning, I was kind of like, is this even worth our time? But I was like, all right, let's do it, and it went fantastically. But we learned a few things by doing that, kind of the 80-20 levers of crowdfunding, I guess you could say. And we're actually taking what we learned there and have a Kickstarter in the works for Willow and Everett right now that we think should do at least as well as the TerraMat did. But yeah, and this is something I'm very passionate about. Is I saw our success of how well the TerraMat did on Kickstarter, and then we were able to take that and generate lots of consistent sales after the Kickstarter occurred through Amazon and our website. So I think for a lot of e-commerce companies, there's a tremendous opportunity if you have a product that is unique or at least resonates with customers of doing the Kickstarter, because it creates such an amazing halo effect that is, I think, severely underestimated. Like what I was blown away is I think 3 weeks into the campaign, I Googled standing desk mat, a fairly competitive keyword, and we were on the front page of Google, our Kickstarter was. So there's so much traffic that comes from that that you don't even expect. It can really help catapult a product. So anyways, it's worth people who out there might have, these companies considering, especially as a strategy into generating consistent sales. What problem I see is people that do these crowdfunding campaigns, they really don't have a game plan after the fact. Like, hey, what am I going to do now that I raise all this money?
I mean, forget about that. Like most people don't have a game plan before, probably, let alone after. I mean, game plan to launch the Kickstarter. Yeah,
sure. And if you want, I could kind of give some
go ahead. Tell me the game plan before and the game plan after.
Yeah, sure. So at the end of the day, as I'm finding out with even anything in business and e-commerce specifically, it really comes down to the product. Like, do you have a good product now? Like, you could follow all the right steps, and if your product just people don't care about it, then you probably shouldn't do a crowdfunding campaign and maybe even bring it to market. So that is partial response to your other question, like how to even buy products.
So start there. So why the ergonomic standing desk mat then?
Yeah, so what we like to do is I like to find demand in the marketplace. I think it's fun to release a product no one's heard of before that is like super innovative, but it's also incredibly risky. As our company's gotten more mature, has better cash flow, we've been able to do some kind of hybrids of, I'll call them evolutionary products, not revolutionary. But revolutionary is extremely risky and difficult unless you're a more established company with a lot of R&D. So what we like to do is kind of the sweet spot of evolutionary, and we use various software to kind of establish demand. So it's a little bit of a science and an art, but we can find, okay, what's selling well out there in the marketplace. What do you even notice is popping up in stores? What do we look at Google Trends a lot, like, okay, where are there like spikes occurring? And then, we look at Amazon data, what's selling well on Amazon. And then what we do is we say, okay, now that we kind of see where there's some strong demand, how can we make what exists better? How can we bring more value to the customer, make something, a lot more enticing for them? So that's kind of how we work it backwards. So what you then want to do is, if you think you have a product that is going to have high demand, you want to test a Kickstarter before you actually do a Kickstarter. This is, I think, like the holy grail, and something I'm actually passionate about helping others who have innovative product ideas do as part of like a side project I have called Product Fuel. But the idea is that you can run, just simple landing pages, drive really targeted traffic, and then start looking at your cost per lead. And if your cost per lead is within a good range, it means this Kickstarter is probably going to work. So for example, Willow and Everett was considering this like super, nice design, temperature control kettle. And I thought it might make a good Kickstarter, but we ran some validation ads for it, and the emails are coming in at about $3 a lead. Way too expensive. That probably wouldn't be sustainable for a crowdfunding campaign. And this is actually part of, the next conversation of how do you do crowdfunding well. The dirty secret is it's paid traffic. It's almost all paid traffic now. Like, you really can't rely on like, oh, it went viral. Like, no, that'll contribute 10% of your crowdfunding. Like, if you're going to break 50K, 100K in crowdfunding, you're going to have a crazy amount of Facebook ads driving that. And you're probably not going to make very much money on it. But so you can run these ads though to validate. So for a new product we have for Willow and Everett that I'm really excited about, it's probably going to be live when this episode goes live. It's called Cold Brew on Tap. We're running some validation ads right now, and we're getting leads for very inexpensive. That tells us like this product is going to work really well. So that's how I think people who have really good ideas can at least validate if it's even worth their time to do that crowdfunding campaign, because it's a lot of work. You don't want to go through the hassle of having the video made, the images, the copy. You don't know if it's going to have a reasonable chance to succeed.
I like how you talk about demystifying it a little bit, because people are like, oh, he probably just put it up there and it went viral and he got like 180,000. And the reality is it takes, first of all, orchestrating. We're not even talking about creating the product, right? That's right after all this stuff happens. But what features are going to be in it and everything like that, but orchestrating the actual, getting people to see it. And then I want you to, if you want to put a plug in for the Product Fuel, if people want to check it out, if they're interested in seeing what you're doing, that's stuff that people can contact you for if they have innovative products. So where can they find that?
I'm kind of testing. Yeah, so it's productfuel.io, and I'm kind of just in beta test with this, kind of trying to lean startup, but see where's the need, where's the interest, but helping people at any stage. The ultimate vision is to make an online accelerator, but what I've found is I don't really like inventing the products as much as I do scaling, bringing them marketing. But I know there's a lot of people out there that are the opposite. They like inventing, but they hate everything else. So I'm trying to help those people who might have that idea, validate it, bring it to market, sell it online, sell it on Amazon, that sort of thing.
So people also check out productfuel.io if they're interested. Whatever iteration you're at with that, they can check it out at this moment and see
shoot
what
me a message there. And I'm just kind of, like I said, an information gathering stage. So just having calls with people, figuring out how I can be of help. So with the Kickstarter, though, the dirty secret, like I said, is paid traffic. And on our own with the Terramat, we did a lot of hustling, a lot of blog outreach, all the steps you might read, like go to Tim Ferriss's blog and you see like Kickstarter tips and you think like, wow, I have to spend hundreds of hours doing this. It's an 80-20 lover's nightmare. And as you do all these steps, trying to share it, get all of these features, we raised $5,000 on our own. That's it. Like really abysmal for the amount of work we did. But what do? We turned to some paid traffic experts, and they really helped us climb to the number we hit. And that's, I guess the secret of crowdfunding.
So thanks for sharing that, Ben. That's awesome. And what features did you include because of feedback? How did you come to this particular type of? Because I love we help develop evolutionary products, not revolutionary products, right? So this is an evolutionary product. What things did you find people were wanting from this?
For the TerraMat, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and my business partner did, he's a mechanical engineer, just a really good designer. So he brought in prototypes into his office and got a lot of feedback, but basically found people like the ability to be able to do multiple poses, multiple stretches.
Yeah.
Really liked having a feature where you could massage your feet. So we ended up putting 2 massage mounts on either side. And then there's a few others out there that have, like, one has a giant blob in the middle, but people found that they actually trip over that. So we eliminated that. So the center of it is you can do free moving, but it has like those nice ability to stretch. And we found people also would want to knead their feet. So we put some little, texture on the front of it, on the foam roller type thing that allows you to really do that.
Yeah. You can buy it on the Kickstarter page, right?
And that's the nice thing about Kickstarter, like it's going to be solidified in page rankings on Google and so forth. But once the Kickstarter is over, you can just link then directly to your website. So
but there's a buy now. Yeah. So I encourage anyone to check it out. And if they have a standing desk, to buy it. CubeFit TerraMat, the ergonomic standing desk mat. And you can see, you guys did an amazing job with the videos or the GIFs. You can see people using it, and it's fantastic. So.
Thanks. Yeah, we love the product. It definitely changes your life if you stand all day because it makes it a lot easier.
Was it important to, like, at that point, when you put the Kickstarter campaign up, where were you at with the prototyping? What do you suggest for, like, how far along in the product development should someone be before putting up a Kickstarter campaign?
So I guess it all depends on the company. But for us, before we do a Kickstarter, we've already made the decision, are we going to launch this product or not? And then at that point, it's just a race to how quickly can we get it made. So usually what we're starting to do now is if we put a Kickstarter up, we're already starting to make the product.
It's like maybe 80% done or something. You're already further. Okay.
Yep, exactly. But if someone's like really trying to test, like, is this even worthwhile? They might only have a very simple prototype. But what I'll say is a lot of times people will say, I have to put the exact funding goals to what I want to raise, if I need to make this come true. But if you put a lower funding goal, once you get funded, you're more likely to show up in funded projects on Kickstarter and get more traffic. So it's actually better to put a lower funding goal, even if you actually need more than that. Yeah,
because also if you don't hit it, you don't get anything. You don't get anything. Yeah, right. At least at the time of this recording. And so Ben, I love the game plan before, right? Obviously, you can do all the things that people teach, and it's going to take hundreds of hours, and it will help and get to 5,000. But really, the paid traffic levers and things. But you validated before then with the Amazon, the Google Trends data, and all this other stuff before you put it out there. But the paid traffic kind of push it over. So you need to have a game plan for doing anything before to budget that in, right? So what about after? What's important to do after?
And if I can caveat that really quick, I think it's important to use volume, but I think there's also something special about you uniquely coming across a product idea and then using the data to validate it. So for the TerraMat, my business partner stood all day, didn't move much, and had like a partial vein failure in his leg from not moving enough. So that was inspiration for making something that helps him move. And then we kind of used the data to validate, like, okay, there would be a lot of demand for this product.
Yes.
But
nothing is substitution for, we'll put the disclaimer, for talking to actual customers or people who have problems.
Right. Or just identifying the problem on your own. And then, bring it to market after a lot of validation. Yeah. But sorry, could you ask
after the game plan after? So the game plan before. So what you said, what most people don't have is a game plan after the Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah. So, and the thing with Kickstarters is we found too is you don't really make a lot of money from it. Unlike most people think. Like I talked to these guys that I helped with. It was a campaign that I think raised like $15 million for a travel jacket. And you might think, like, wow, they're just swimming in money. Apparently, like after everything, all the fees, ads, blah blah blah, they ended up clearing like $100K on that. Like really terrible margins. So you really need a game plan in place to.
It's free lead generation.
Exactly, and it builds a really loyal customer base. I'm always shocked at how responsive our CubeFit TerraMat backers are, and they're just amazing because they help bring the product to life, and they really believe in what you're doing. So just a great resource to either launch a company from or make it a lot stronger. But you need something in place to really then like make the money for the business after the Kickstarter. So what we found is there's an amazing potential to do this Kickstarter to Amazon brand, because there's a ton of traffic on Amazon. And once you do a Kickstarter, not only do you get the halo effect, but now you have a lot of social credibility on Amazon that makes you stand out. Not to mention the trust of Amazon as a platform. It can be very difficult to convince someone to buy your new widget on your random Shopify store versus Amazon. Amazon has the highest conversions. This doesn't work with all products, but it works with a lot. We've had a lot of success doing this with TerraMat and some of the other products we have in the works. So that's part of Product Fuel's sweet spot right now, is helping other companies bridge that Kickstarter to Amazon gap. There's also, obviously launching on your own store can work pretty well. You're just going to probably bleed a lot of potential customers because they're not going to trust your store necessarily as much as they would on.
But I think trust on Amazon, they're already shopping there.
Right. Yeah. Yep. But I think having both up is pretty important. But it's like anything, right? Like I could say, hey, yeah, you should definitely run paid ads for your Kickstarter campaign. I would not recommend trying to go out and figure out Facebook ads. Like that takes years to get right. So it's finding out who is world class in this and then bring them on your team. That's what we did for a Kickstarter. It's what we're doing for our current Kickstarter. We have an amazing guy that's even helping with the validation, is going to launch the Kickstarter for us. So same thing with Amazon, like either become world-class or get, some world-class expertise. And then same with your e-commerce store. One of my friends actually runs a company that helps Kickstarters sell on their e-commerce platforms, for a cut, but they help them do way more than that company could ever do on their own. So I think it's finding who is the best in this industry and how can I work with them. It's the whole notion of, would you rather have a very small pie to yourself, or would you rather have, a lot of a huge pie? I'd always much rather have several slices of a huge pie.
Some people would think, well, if they have like more of a scarcity, like, well, I don't want to hire someone because they don't want to take, or I don't have to pay them a lot of money, but then without them, you wouldn't be making all that money type of thing.
And that's why the best people only do rev share. And like this guy who runs this e-commerce company, they're actually called Madix Labs. He's a great guy, so I'll mention that. But they take a cut of rev share. So they're, if you
What's it called? How do you spell it?
Madix Labs, Matix Labs.com, Madix Labs. So they will run your e-commerce store, but they only target people who've had successful Kickstarters, and they just take a cut of revenue. So if they're not getting sales, they're not getting paid. And that's actually how I'm kind of structuring my experiment right now for helping other people on Amazon. And that's how the people who have done our ads for the Kickstarters also structure it. And I think it's just a win-win, because if you're getting money, they're getting money. If they're not, you're not. So it's
right. So if you have a bunch of customers coming into Madix Labs, you should give Ben a cut of that, because he just referred you a couple people. But thanks, Ben. So anything after? So obviously there needs to be that game plan. So are there certain levers to get the traffic to Amazon, or is it just a simple thing like making sure it's the buy now is going over to Amazon? What things should someone be thinking about doing?
So great question. I actually wrote a blog post on that. The only blog post on Product Fuel that I have written so far, because I got way too busy. But I kind of talk about like the top 7 steps you should do when trying to go from an awesome Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign to Amazon. It's several simple steps, like taking advantage of the social proof by having your Amazon listing really tell people like, hey, this thing did great on Kickstarter, having your video up, redirecting your link on the Kickstarter page to either Amazon or a landing page where you then shoot people in the coupon. And then it's targeting keywords, because at the end of the day, Amazon only works if you can get your product ranking for those extremely high volume keywords. Right. So it doesn't work for all products, but if your product is a fit, there can be massive opportunity. Yeah.
I mean, you point out 2 things on the post, which is the 2, I mean, we don't really know the algorithm, but I mean, reviews are huge, right, with ranking, and then sales velocity is huge, and product ranking keywords. So the 2 you mentioned, which probably people don't think about doing, is emailing all your backers and having them leave a review on Amazon, right? That's big.
Yeah, so there's a company right now I'm helping. They're called Wilcox Boots. Amazing boots. They just did this Kickstarter campaign, or not just, but like a year or so ago. It went really well. And we had them send out email to their backers. They got 150 reviews in like one day. Amazing. And everyone loves the product. So instant social proof from that. So that's again why I love this Kickstarter to Amazon or to your store, because it's
low hanging fruit that they would not have some people wouldn't even think of, that produces huge results for them. And it just means writing one email.
Right. Yep,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check it out, productfuel.io, and then it's like top 5 secrets to a successfully sell your crowdfunded product on Amazon. So Ben, we talked about researching products, and especially for Kickstarter. What about, do you do it differently than if it's just launching on your site in Amazon than Kickstarter? You know, because you do the Google Trends, you do the Amazon sales, you do some testing in ads. Is there a different process for if you're just launching it on your site in Amazon than Kickstarter, or is it the same?
Different launch process or validation?
Yeah, different validation process for a new product. Because not every product you release on Kickstarter. You know, some you're just releasing on Amazon yourself.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So I think for Kickstarter, does it have you're kind of looking for that a little bit of a wow factor. You know, like, is it instant gratification? Like someone's like sees it, like, I love that. Because some of our products are a little more utilitarian and boring, and I just know it would not do well at all on Kickstarter. But it's still validated because we can still see strong demand, and we know it's a better product that will launch it. But I think that's kind of where like the art, you know, to the science counterpart comes in, is you kind of gotta give your best guess and, you know, use some intuition. And sometimes, you know, we're still wrong, but that's why you do the validation. Because at the end of the day, it's all about, is it the right product or not? You can do all the right steps, but it's either the right product or it's not.
Talk about launching. So I know you have like a 72-step process for launching. What are some of the most important things when launching a product?
Sure. Yeah. You know, and a lot of that is following our best practices is just, as far as just like ensuring product quality, you know, dealing with all the logistics, the inspections, and then once it's getting ready to actually go live, you know, on our website and on Amazon. But we have our own kind of VIP group that we'll give the product to start kind of testing out, getting feedback on it. And then it's also important on Amazon specifically to get a lot of initial exposure quickly. So we'll use some launch sites that can kind of help get our product out there for lower price, but then it can really help it climb the keyword rankings fast. And then it's, you know, just trying to drive as much traffic as you can. So we're driving it from our own list, from our Facebook page, from other people's launch services, and then turning on Amazon ads and just trying to, like, you know, send as much to the listing at once as you can. But on top of that, you need to make sure that you're in a highly converting state. So you need to have amazing images, good copy, you know, all the, I guess, basic e-commerce stuff, doing really good keyword research to know what you even care about.
What was the biggest mistake you were making? I mean, there's a long list now, but when you were you've built this out over time. What's the biggest mistake you were making and you feel other people are making that when you changed made the biggest difference? Like, I don't know, I'm not saying it is, but like, for example, like actually just putting high quality images and images that are people using the product as opposed to just the product.
Yeah.
So what have been the biggest levers as far as the mistakes you were making, and once you put it in place, it produced the most results for you? Yeah,
that's a really good question. I'd say, yeah, maybe one of the big ones actually is, I think a lot of people overlook images. Like, you know, retail is changing rapidly. A lot of stores are going bankrupt, and just the whole nature of commerce is shifting. But there's something a lot different about buying it on your computer than going to the store and be able to interact with it, turn it around. So what people forget is, like, the customer wants to know, like, how does this product actually work? What does it look like? So what we found is, and this has been developing over time, but by putting as many lifestyle images as possible and just really helping try to bring the customer into, like, the story of, like, how is your product being used? What are the different, you know, features? Like, for example, one of our teapots, we'll show it steeping in the tea. We'll show it, you know, maybe being microwaved at one point, showing kind of the different, like, ways that you can use it, having a really attractive model, pouring it with their friends, just trying to tie the consumer into that story. We find that really helps conversions and makes someone a lot more likely to buy versus 7 different images, you know, that just show it from various angles on a white background. Like, that doesn't really help the consumer in any way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, I guess, a lot of other tips I could think of, but that's maybe one of the big ones that I think kind of gets overlooked. And a lot of people don't want to spend money on images because it does cost a lot, but it's just an investment that pays dividends if you do it right.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've seen you guys do on your site is just the animated GIF that most people aren't doing. I mean, even the Kickstarter, the TerraMat example, like, yeah, you know, if you said, oh, calf stretch, I'm like, okay, cool, calf stretch. But then if you show like an animated GIF of someone actually doing a calf stretch, it means so much more. It's so much better. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that you guys do that.
Instant demo. Yeah. Yep. And same with, you know, video. very beneficial as well.
So Ben, we talked a lot about, and for productfuel.io, I'm going to put my vote in iteration. What's interesting is, as a veteran, someone, it's really interesting how people transitioning after their service. What do they do? You know what I mean? There's probably a big population of they're not sure, transitioning into civilianhood or whatever you call it. It's interesting. Probably a lot of those people have ideas. It's like you could even get so far in niching down into helping those people have product ideas while they're in service, develop them so when they get out, they have a sustainable business waiting for them. So I don't know. I think about that for your productfuel.io as a really niched
service.
You know what I mean?
That's I really like that idea, because I am passionate about helping other vets, and there are a few services that do that. But I think to really help empower the inventor.
So think about that for a second. I was just thinking, and I want to talk about. I know we have a couple minutes. You have another meeting coming up, but I don't like to leave it just on the up. I like to hear about some of the challenges. You know what I mean? Because the reality is there's ups and downs to this. What have been some of the challenges or the down pieces?
Yeah. I mean, definitely been a lot of those. Entrepreneurship's a roller coaster, and I think it's trying to not get too far down when things aren't going well. So,
what's been I guess I like to end it with Inspired Insider with what's been a low moment business wise, and then what's been a super proud moment for you.
Yeah, so I think a low moment is, or just a difficulty is having so much going on that you start feeling burned out, or you can do all the systemizing you want, but it's a constant process. And right now I've a little too much that I can chew. We actually launched a third business, kind of replicating some of what we're doing, but I'm starting to feel kind of split between too many different things. So I'm wanting to, I think, prune some of that down. And then I think as you do that, you start to, I know sometimes I'll just be a little short with people, or, just feeling from the pressure, impatient. And so I think it's kind of trying to deal with, the quote busyness, and the one thing says you need to embrace the chaos that ensues by just doing your major things, because then there's a lot of little stuff that's kind of floating out there, I didn't clear out my inbox today. Not the end of the world if you don't do that, but I still feel that pressure as a perfectionist to get it done.
You feel like sometimes it's leaked into your personal or social situations.
Fantastic point. Yep, I'm really trying hard right now to kind of keep it compartmentalized. When I go home, at 6 from the WeWork, I'm leaving work behind. I'm not talking about it, and I'm really trying to do a better job with that on weekends, because I see a lot of entrepreneurs that reach into their life. It's done that to me for the last 6 months to a year, and I'm kind of done with it. So
yeah. I wish we had more time, because I want to hear, because your spouse is obviously part of the business, so that's even harder to cut out.
Yeah, you know what? I can actually, my next meeting, I can be 10 minutes late. So we can keep chatting if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. Because then it's okay, how do you even shut things off? And how do your spouse is part of the business? That's, I would think, really tough to navigate. So if you need to send a message, go ahead and do your thing. But I'd love to explore that a little bit, because I'm sure people have family or friends or spouses in the business with them, and how you navigate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. It's awesome being able to do it with your spouse on one hand, because you're doing this together. You know each other really well. We happen to complement each other in a lot of ways in the business. She's good at things I'm terrible at, and vice versa. But it's also a big challenge, because now, for a while actually, I was kind of giving her tasks almost. I had a Trello board, and I was putting cards on her board, and I quickly learned that is a really bad idea to treat your wife like an employee. Learn the hard way. But
what did she say?
Was just she's just I can tell just kind of getting upset that I was telling her what to do, and then would just be super late on deadlines, and there's just a lot of stress from that. And I had this moment where I was this is not it's not even worth having a business that's going to succeed if it means your marriage is going to suffer. And so we ended up hiring a marketing manager that I could then, treat as an employee, and then allow her to do what she wanted. But I think it's important to have clear.
You just called the marketing manager, put this on her Trello board. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no.
So she'll let you
No,
and
she-
not me. No.
No, yeah, he does her task now that I was giving her. Yeah, that would be fun. You have someone else do it because then she won't say no.
Look, I just hired a person to put stuff on her trello bar. That's it.
Can't get mad at her. Yeah. But I think what we're really trying to do, and I know you think about this a lot, is how can you have a healthy marriage while running the businesses. Is I'm trying to keep things very compartmented. So if we go out, I'm trying to have one awesome date night a week where we don't talk about business or problem solve. Trying to not talk about business on weekends. But it's a work in progress, and I kind of had my eyes open up even just a few months ago, where I was just so busy, in survival mode, so to speak, running these businesses while being in the Air Force. Finally got out of the Air Force, had breathing room, but found out all my habits had been established at that point. It's like, oh crap! So I kind of had like a rude awakening, and thankfully my wife was very gracious, but kind of helped me understand, like, hey, you are like being way too consumed by these businesses. And we, something I actually would highly recommend is see a marriage counselor. Like, I don't think there's no shame in that. I think it's very healthy, and I think it should be a regular part of people's lives to see a counselor, because they find things that you don't know about. We all have blind spots, so we've done that a few times. That's incredibly life-giving. Build a talk.
What did you learn from that?
Oh man, I learned I learned a lot. I learned that I can be I can be selfish, and I learned that I think I was making this excuse for like, oh, I gotta provide for the family, I gotta provide for us, but was kind of just using that to fuel my own ambition, and taking a step back. It's like, okay, God's blessed us to the point where we're doing this full time. We can have more than enough money to eat, buy a house, etc. Now I'm just kind of pursuing a number, like, oh, 7 figures isn't enough. Let's go for 8 figures. Let's go for, and it's like, that's not worth it. Like, if you just pursue success for success sake, like it's so empty. So it kind of helped me realize, like, that's what I was doing. Like, I was no longer just trying to provide for our family. I was just on a runaway, success rant, I guess you could say. So, that was pretty huge.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. We'll let your wife hear that so she knows you're selfish and you get extra points for admitting that. Yes, Lee, I'm selfish too. My wife's a clinical psychologist, so yes, there is a lot of time and place for people to get this. And it makes perfect sense. Like, people have business coaches, then oftentimes we don't do coaching for some of our relationships.
Yeah. And actually, on that note, what I'll say too is, what I find is, if I'm constantly filling my head with business this, business that, then that's all I think about. And part of the shift has been like, hey, I'm going to start also learning about, like, how do you become an awesome husband? How do you have an awesome marriage? Because it does take work, and just like building a business, you kind of have to build your marriage. So at least put some thought into it. You can't just expect it to happen. But I didn't realize that until the last, few months, really concretely. So, that's been helpful.
Thanks for sharing that, Ben, because that's obviously very personal. So on the last question, Ben, what's been one of the proudest moments so far for you?
So I'm actually trying to work on not being prideful. So, dangerous question. No, so I guess what I'll say is, maybe I'll say grateful moments.
Okay, grateful. Grateful is good.
But I'm really grateful, and I guess proud of the hard work that my wife did, I did, and then our team at Willow and Everett, to kind of take this dream of after Kilo and everything, and I was just discouraged. But I loved entrepreneurship, and really wanting to do it full time, and praying like, God, would you let me be a full time entrepreneur? And then he answered it, and here May 22nd, 2017, I was able to leave the Air Force, be a full-time entrepreneur, and I really hope I can do it for the rest of my life. And that was just like an amazing, like, I didn't really think that was possible, that I could be running businesses on my own like that, especially fairly soon. But I'm just really grateful that that God blessed it, and we all worked hard to make it happen. So
thanks for sharing, Ben. And where should we point people towards online? I know I mentioned productfuel.io. Any other places we should point people towards to find out more about you and what you're doing?
Productfuel.io. I can't even pronounce it. Productfuel.io would be good. And especially, I didn't mention this, but I'm really interested in becoming potentially an investor in small, up-and-coming, innovative brands. So I'd love to connect with innovative brands or inventors, and then also anyone who maybe is an investor, and kind of how they do that because I'm looking to learn more about this area. So productfuel.io, but then also willow&everett.com is our high-end kitchen brand, and then cubefit.com is the Healthy Office brand. Where
should they connect with you if they have interest on productfuel.io, or where should we send people for that?
Yeah, there's I think I have a contact form in there. There's several. I think on that one I just put a Gmail one, ben.arneberg@gmail.com. But you can reach me at like ben@willowandeverett.com or add me on LinkedIn. Okay.
Ben, I want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for breaking down all these processes so thoroughly. I really appreciate it. People should check out productfuel.io, Willow and Everett, or CubeFit. It's been awesome.
Hey, thanks so much, Jeremy. It's been an honor. Hope to see you at Rising.
Rise 25, exactly.
Yeah, Rise 25. It sounds awesome. So awesome. I'd love to come.
Cool.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.